We need to talk about Conor McGregor. Again, the former UFC champ is facing a serious civil suit in Florida where he is accused of sexually assaulting a woman after an NBA Finals game, and his attorney just allowed this case to move forward. We're going to get into the latest right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, we got to talk about former UFC star Conor McGregor. In fact, the last time we spoke about him was last year when he was found liable for sexually assaulting a woman out in Ireland. We covered that case a lot on Sidebar. If you're interested, you can go back, check out all those episodes. It's actually interesting because it was reported that he just dropped his application to introduce new evidence in his appeal of that jury decision. He was ordered to pay more than £248,000 in damages. Always maintained he didn't do anything wrong here. He didn't do anything he was accused of. Anyway, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about regarding the 37-year-old is a legal case that he's facing in the United States, in Florida. And no, it doesn't have to do with the news that broke this past week of rapper Azealia Banks, who allegedly shared nude selfie photos of the athlete in front of a mirror that he reportedly sent to her. He then allegedly sent her a text not to speak about it. That's a whole other issue. We're not talking about that. No. This concerns an unidentified Jane Doe who is suing the former multi-weight UFC champion, filed the suit in January of this year, for allegedly attacking her, namely slamming her face against a bathroom stall, putting her in an arm lock, before allegedly raping her, all while he's in this intoxicated state. So this purportedly occurred at Miami's Kaye Center back on June 9th, 2023. And the reason we're talking about it is because it's officially moving forward, this lawsuit. His legal team has removed an obstacle for Jane Doe. They have waived formally serving the complaint, which would have meant that he needed to be served in Ireland. No longer. Now, his lawyer, Barbara Yanis, is reportedly ready to appear for him in Florida Federal District Court. And let me tell you, before he seemingly agreed to waive formal service in Ireland, this was a little bit of a legal headache. The Independent is reporting that Jane Doe's lawyer had been trying to serve McGregor since January, that process server agents in Ireland were tasked with trying to serve him in the country after her lawyer sent the summons to the central office of the High Court in Ireland. Jane Doe's lawyer even got a 100-day 80 extension to try to serve him. So why do this? What does this mean for him? What could a trial show? A lot to get into when it comes to this lawsuit. So for that, let me bring in right now nationally recognized trial lawyer David Ring, who specializes in cases of sexual abuse and assault. David, thank you so much for coming back here on Sidebar. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jesse.
David, legally, is it strategic to waive service here? Why do it?
I think it is. I mean, look, at some point, the Jane Doe's lawyer can go to the court and say, I have made all of these attempts to try to serve this person. I've been acting in good faith and diligence, and they're ducking service. They won't let me serve them. And then the court might say, you know what, then you can just serve them by publishing it. And the problem with that for Conor McGregor is that, he risks having his default taken. So if he kind of blows off getting served, if he doesn't appear in the case, the plaintiff automatically wins. The last thing he wants is to be in default. So that's why they accepted service.
By the way, his lawyer couldn't have done this without his permission, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The lawyer's got to have the client's permission to accept service. I mean, it's a big deal. But you can imagine how difficult it would be to actually serve someone like Conor McGregor, especially out of the country, but just getting close to him and handing him a legal document, which is what the process server has to do. They actually have to hand it to him and he has to accept it. And it's very difficult to get close to a celebrity like that.
Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to these outcomes? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan, they're stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for the families who deserve justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. So now I want to get into what happens next, and we are going to get into the allegations in the complaint. Before we do that, legally what happens now? She files an answer to the complaint? Does she file a motion to dismiss? What can we expect from both of those avenues if that's really where they might be going?
Yeah, Conor McGregor's lawyer could file either one of those things. She could file an answer which says, at the moment she's not disputing the legal technicalities in the lawsuit, or she could file a motion to dismiss saying, hey, they haven't pled what's legally required. I don't think that really would have much of a chance at this point. So I suspect she files some sort of answer and they proceed on to what's called discovery, depositions and document requests and things like that.
Yeah, answer's pretty simplistic, right? It's either you admit, you deny, or you say you don't have enough information about like each one of the paragraphs in a complaint or the sections. And yeah, motion to dismiss, basically failure to state a claim. Okay, so you move on to this. One of the things I was curious about, if this is now going to proceed, and we kind of saw this in the Sean Combs civil cases too, the first area of attack, I do wonder, David, do you think Conor McGregor's legal team is going to try to ask the court that Jane Doe should not be able to proceed using a pseudonym, which could be a win for him, because if the court agrees and says, listen, she has to go forward revealing her identity, it's only in the interest of fairness, she was the one who brought the lawsuit, he has a right to confront her. If she has to reveal herself, she may not want to move forward publicly. I mean, do you think, A, that's something he may do? And B, do you think that's something that might be successful for him?
Absolutely, on both counts. I mean, that is a very strategic move if he does it. And exactly what you said, Jesse, is that it kind of forces her hand. She wants to be anonymous and she wants to be Jane Doe with good reason. I mean, the courts generally allow that, but some courts don't. And so he could very well file a motion saying she needs to reveal her identity. What we know about her, I would never reveal her identity, but it's been published, is that, she's an executive at some sort of financial firm.
Yep.
And so, she's got a business reputation there, and it very well could have the outcome of her saying, you know what, I'm not willing to put my name on this lawsuit for a lot of different reasons. And she walks away from it. It's a distinct possibility.
So now there are aspects of this case that I want to talk about. Okay, so we go to the lawsuit. And according to the lawsuit, as you mentioned, this woman is apparently a vice president on Wall Street at a, quote, high-profile financial institution. And she claims that Conor McGregor was at Game 4 of the NBA Finals between the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets on June 9th, 2023 at the Kaye Center to promote and advertise a pain relief spray. Now, Jane Doe says that at this point, security and staff of the arena knew Conor McGregor was a potential danger to those around him because of his intoxication. But the allegation is they continually provided him with liquor, allowing him to pour his own drinks. And here's what the lawsuit says about what happened next, or what it claims. Quote, Jane Doe's acquaintance stated, "We are leaving." And Conor Anthony McGregor's private security, or a friend of Conor Anthony McGregor, stated, "Conor told me to come get you," and grabbed Jane Doe's wrist and led Jane Doe and the acquaintance toward the exit of the courtside club, apparently where they'd been hanging out and conversing. And before leaving the courtside club, Conor Anthony McGregor's friend, or security, stopped at the entrance to the men's bathroom. Jane Doe requested of the friend to let go of her wrist, and he said, "No, Conor will kill me if I lose you." So according to the lawsuit, McGregor led Jane Doe and her friend into a restroom, allowing Jane to go into a stall, wouldn't let the acquaintance follow. And I'm going to warn you right now, the description that she gives is highly disturbing. Okay? From the lawsuit, quote, while Jane Doe was evacuating her bladder and seated on the commode, Conor Anthony McGregor appeared to Jane Doe to be under the influence of intoxicants. And then she says that he attempted to force oral sex on her without her consent. Thereafter, Jane Doe pulled her pants up and stood up and attempted to exit the stall. Conor Anthony McGregor slammed Jane Doe against the wall face first and put Jane Doe in an arm lock and attempted to forcefully sexually assault her. Now, Jane Doe is suing McGregor for battery and also that arena and security for gross negligence. She's looking for a judgment that includes compensatory damages, medical treatment costs. The lawsuit says that she reserves the right to seek leave to amend to pursue punitive damages. Let's stop right there. David, from your perspective, this is a graphic account. It is a very specific account. What do you take away from it? Because the whole question becomes of credibility and how could she prove this? And at the same time, what she's seeking is quite substantial.
Well, hey, look, if her allegations are true And if she's able to prove her case and she's a credible witness, that's a very, very large case. And a jury's going to award her a lot of financial compensation. We don't know if it's true or not. I mean, he's going to have an entirely different version of events. But if her story is true and the jury believes her, that's a very, very significant case and a horrific case. And a jury's going to award a lot of money against Conor McGregor.
Now, here's what's interesting. In an amended complaint that was filed a few weeks later, Jane Doe has apparently released all of the co-defendants from the federal lawsuit, so it leaves just McGregor and the one cause of action of battery. And the amended complaint indicates that Jane will pursue a case against the Arena, the Miami Heat, and other corporations in state court. Why do that?
Well, that's an interesting piece of strategy. Look, she has to sue him in federal court because he's not a citizen of the U.S. And then for her to bring the other defendants in state court, I think what the strategy is there is that she wants to proceed with the case against McGregor first and then see how that plays out and then deal with the case against the Arena after that. That's a very difficult lawsuit against the Arena, against Kaye Arena. That's a tough case to win. And I think she's probably saying, I'm going to focus on the federal case against McGregor first.
I'm going to ask you about that because I'll get into why she's trying to hold him liable. The first thing I will tell everybody is that McGregor's lawyer, again, Ms. Yanis, called the suit at the time a, quote, new false story. After a thorough investigation at the time, the state's attorney concluded that there was no case to pursue. Almost 2 years and at least 3 lawyers later, the plaintiff has a new false story. We are confident that this case, too, will be dismissed. And that's key. That's key because there apparently was an incident report that was filed with Miami police 2 days after this allegedly happened on June 11th. But in the end, the Florida State Attorney's Office declined to prosecute, and it was announced that the criminal case would be closed. According to TMZ at the time, who apparently reviewed a memo from the prosecutor's office, authorities discovered there was a bathroom attendant that was present for the alleged attack, but, quote, didn't hear any signs of distress. And TMZ also reported that Jane Doe didn't tell her friend what happened and merely told her mother that she met McGregor. Now, David, is that a problem for her?
That's a problem for her. I mean, look, juries look at credibility of witnesses and they take their own experiences to the courtroom and they say, is this how a sexual assault victim would act? And so the witnesses are crucial. And so if you truly have a bathroom attendant who is in there saying, I didn't hear one thing out of the ordinary, that's not going to help her case. And if her friend says she came back and she seemed to be acting completely normal, again, that's not going to necessarily help her case. The other thing you mentioned, Jesse, that kind of raises a red flag is that she's gone through 3 lawyers already. And so to me, anytime I see that, that just signals like there's something amiss if someone has already cycled through 3 lawyers on their case and it's barely getting off the ground. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what's behind the scenes there, but it's just a red flag that I see.
How much does the criminal investigation come up in a civil case, either both for the plaintiff's side or the defense's side?
Well, again, another huge thing that you mentioned is the criminal case. Now, look, on Jane Doe's favor, it's fantastic that she went and reported this right away. Within a day or so, she reported to the police. Because if she hadn't, then the argument is, well, you never went to the police. So she did. That's great. And their investigation doesn't sound like it's going to help her that much, though. It sounds like it's all the witnesses they interviewed kind of tend to favor McGregor's version of the story. The other thing is the fact that he was not criminally charged. Again, that's going to weigh in his favor. If there was a criminal charge here, boy, then she's in the driver's seat on this case. He's being criminally charged, but he's not. They said there's not enough proof, not enough evidence. Now, we know there's different standards of proof in the 2 types of cases, but still, it doesn't help her that he was not criminally charged after a full investigation.
Yeah, and not even necessarily based on the reporting that he's a celebrity and they don't want to charge. It's that there's evidence that might contradict or not support her account. Now, in response to this, so her lawyer said, quote, after the Miami-Dade County Prosecutor's Office elected not to pursue criminal charges, a civil case is the only avenue that my client has to seek justice in this case. My client has thought long and hard about the decision to pursue this civil case and is fearful of the effect it may have on her job on Wall Street, which, David, it makes me wonder if this does go to trial, and I imagine she would have to take the stand to explain this. that's something she would lean into, right? She would say, I voluntarily chose to file this lawsuit. It's not something I wanted to do. It's not something that I was looking to do, but I felt like I had no choice. And I'm putting my credibility, my reputation, potentially my career at stake by publicly accusing, Conor McGregor of this.
No, absolutely true. I mean, she can absolutely say, hey, I went to the police, and now my only recourse to get some form of justice is in the courts, is through a civil case, and that's why I'm doing this. And so, hey, look, I've had plenty of cases where the police, for whatever reason, or the district attorney chose not to bring criminal charges against the perpetrator. And then, us representing the victim, we go on and bring a civil suit and win and prove the case. And so, the two don't necessarily go hand in hand all the time. There's plenty of righteous cases out there where there weren't criminal charges brought.
Mm-hmm. By the way, David, this other part to the lawsuit, or that was part of the federal lawsuit, now going to be part of state. So apparently there's an allegation here that McGregor that night had punched the Heat mascot, Bernie, again, earlier in the night before the alleged attack, claiming that he sent this guy in the mascot outfit to the hospital. And as part of the product promotion that he was doing, McGregor went out on the court during a break with an actor inside the costume, apparently ended up punching him twice, knocking him to the ground. It wasn't like play acting by all accounts, but the mascot had to be pulled off the court, apparently, had to seek aid. And the allegation is, in this lawsuit, is that McGregor was allowed to stay for the rest of the game and was still given access to alcohol, even though he allegedly knocked somebody's lights out in the middle of the court. So the lawsuit alleges that arena staff, quote, had chargeable knowledge of a heightened risk of battery being carried out by McGregor, again, before the assault happened. So that's an interesting argument. Again, they seem to be separating it in terms of how she's going to be holding the arena or the staff liable or the Heat liable. Is that a good argument to hold them liable, whether it's a state court or a federal court?
I'll tell you, it's interesting. I mean, it definitely adds a twist to the case that is very interesting. And here's my take on that. Because I went and watched the video of him at halftime. And I mean, he punches this mascot. He punches him while the mascot's standing up, and then the mascot falls down. And that's probably part of the shtick. But then he lays a punch into him while he's on the ground. And it's a real punch. And this mascot's not moving. And so it's an interesting part of the case, because I think the important part of this is how intoxicated was Conor McGregor. So if he was super intoxicated, visibly intoxicated, this guy's out of control. He's completely screwed up this halftime promotional event. He's clearly punches the guy and sends him to the hospital, and then they keep serving him alcohol. Okay. I'm in on that theory. I can see that kind of keeps the arena into the case. It does kind of show that, hey, this guy's out of control, and we either need to remove him from the arena or stop serving him alcohol.
Is that the duty of an arena? Is that a duty of a sports organization to make sure that all of the patrons are safe from other people? Or is that part of their responsibility? And I guess, it is true. If that incident didn't allegedly happen on the court, there might have been a difficult argument to say that they're somehow responsible. I think it would have been different if somebody brought in a weapon and there was lax security to check the weapon being brought in. But other than that, it's hard to control the behavior of everybody. Fights happen all the time in sporting events. But this one you're saying might cross the line because of what happened or allegedly happened on the court.
Yes. So the arena does, have a duty to their patrons, their spectators, their paying customers to, have reasonable safeguards in place. That doesn't mean they're going to stop every fight. Doesn't mean they're going to stop every person from drinking too much alcohol, but they have to have some reasonable safeguards in place, because they know these types of things happen, that people get drunk and get in fights. But with McGregor, I think the argument that Jane Doe's making is they knew, they were on notice, they had knowledge that he was overly intoxicated, that he was being violent and reckless in this halftime event, and that it carried over to his actions with Jane Doe and with other people in the aftermath of halftime. Yeah, I think it's a legitimate argument to make. Is it going to carry the day? I don't know, but it's a legitimate argument for Jane Doe to make.
Also, by the way, David, the timing's interesting of this lawsuit. So my understanding, right, if we look at the timeline of this is after Conor McGregor was found liable in Ireland for sexual assault. Do you think that has any bearing? You think that's a factor on this lawsuit at all?
It wouldn't surprise me if it was a factor. And look, that's another really important thing that's weighing in favor of Jane Doe's case is that Conor McGregor was found civilly liable by a court, even though it's in Ireland, by a court of sexually assaulting another female, civilly liable. And so I think that's really important because, hey, he's done it before. A jury or a court has found him liable for this. And so, conceivably, Jane Doe, maybe in her case, this is totally up to the judge, great judicial discretion, but she may be able to have that other victim testify in her case that, hey, Conor McGregor has done this in the past.
Or at the very least, it could signal to her that while the circumstances are different and the players are different and the locations are very different, she might say, hey, that was more of a test case, and you at least had a finding of liability there. While the standard of proof might be different, you could see at least a jury was agreeable to finding him liable. That's a point in my corner that perhaps a jury would find the same thing. But to be fair, just because he was found liable in one court in one case doesn't mean that he would be found liable in this one. It's just an interesting update. David Ring, I wanted to bring you on to talk more about it. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.